Welcome to the introduction of Whitebox Learning Research. Today I'm going to show you how to get into the research and how to start this out and work your way through it so you understand how to build, design your CO2 dragster. So the first thing that we're going to do, you're obviously going to log in to my Moodle page, Lockhart Tech Ed 7. Make sure that's where you're at right here. It says that at the top. And as you go through, you're going to go through the stuff we've already talked about with the syllabus and rules, and you're going to go down to where it says CO2 Dragster Design. In CO2 Dragster Design, you're going to find the spot that says Whitebox Learning Login. Once we get to the Whitebox Learning Login, I want you to click that button, and it's going to open up a secondary window. With that secondary window open, please go ahead and expand by clicking the square maximize button here and expand that so you see the whole screen. As you're going to know, you're going to see Whitebox Learning up here in the top. You're going to see some other menu items up here, and you're going to see a login button here. We're not going to worry about anything here. We are also not going to worry, there's a line right here. We're not going to worry about anything underneath this, okay? The only thing you're worried about are these icons right here. Specifically, you're only worried about one of those. These icons right here are different applications that this software can do, and you can see, like you did last year in 6th grade, they have a structures on them that we did not use, but they have a structures icon, and they have various other icons, and some coming soon, and so on and so forth. We are going to look for the one that says Dragsters 2.0. On Dragster 2.0, I want you to click the icon, and when you click the icon, your login information is going to be asked for. You were given a slip of paper. On that slip of paper, it'll say student ID and it'll have a code. It'll also say group ID and it'll have a code. And everybody's group ID, it says HLB0. Okay, that last one is a 0. If it has a line through it, it's a 0. Do not lose this slip of paper. Tape it into your planner, tape it into anywhere that you're going to always have it with you when you log into Whitebox Learning. So if you need it on your planner, put it by your Chromebook, attach it somewhere. Do not lose this, because this is your access code. This is your access code to get in. So what you're going to do is when you get in here, you're going to type in, and now in my case, mine's already preloaded, but you're going to, for the first time, you're going to type in your student ID. Again, be very aware that zeros and O's look different. If you have one that has a line through it, that is a 0. If it doesn't have a line through it, it is an O. So go ahead and type your student ID. And when you get your student ID typed in, you go down and type in your group ID. Again, like I said, everybody's group ID will be the same, HLB0. So everybody's group ID is the same. That's our school ID. Okay. After you get that in, you click Login. Once you do that and you get that right, you're going to come to this hello screen. Okay. We call it the hello screen because right up here in the top, it'll say hello, and your name should be over here. Okay, your name should be over here. We also have a sign out icon. On the middle of the screen, you have your big start here, and then you have 5 areas in Whitebox Learning Dragsters that we work with. The area we are going to specifically talk about today is our research. You will kind of fall over into some engineering a little bit in this research, but for the most part, we're talking about research. But we have also an engineering section, we have a competition section, we have outputs, and we have build and test. These other sections right here will be covered in future videos. So what I want you to do is, as you get into here, go into research and click on this number 1, and it's going to take you to the Whitebox Learning Screen main window. Okay. When you get into the Whitebox Learning Screen main window, I want you to also note again, we have the menu across the top, which also has those 5 areas that we just looked at in the previous screen. You get your engineering, competition, outputs, build, and test. Those are also existing right here. We have a couple others, your log out button, you have a help button, file button, and a journal button. We'll talk about these again in future videos. We're going to focus on right here today is look at the research tree. This area is called a tree, this down on the left side. So it is called a tree. And what we're going to do is you notice that there's a bunch of lists of things in here, and they're broken down into different categories: engineering, design, process, background, and knowledge at work. And we're always want to start with the very first one. Here is the engineering design process. You notice that each one of these things has a little icon by it. What we always want to do is we want to start with the very first one right here, and we're going to click this icon. Once that icon is clicked, you're going to go into now starting your engineering design process research. The engineering design process basically goes through how are you going to create a car, how are you going to design a car, stuff like this. It has been discussed in previous classes, Miss Borridge's class and my class previously. So what you want to do is, since you're in the research, that's what you're going to do. You're going to research. You're going to read up about it, understand it, know what's going on with it. As you go through, I don't expect you to take notes on any of this, but if you choose to take notes, you certainly may. That may come back and help you later on. The other thing I want you to point out to you as you go through this, some of you may not sit there and want to just go ahead and read all this type of stuff. If you notice, as I'm hovering into this, it grays out an area, boxes out this area, and there's a little headphone icon right here. That's the audio icon. If you click that icon, it will read that section for you. So that is an option for you too. And if you notice, as you go to the next one, there's another headphone. You go to the next one, headphone, 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 so on and so forth. When you get to area like this graphic, you don't see, as I'm hovering over it, you don't see an audio. You'll have to go ahead and read that on your own, but it'll continue to go through. And what you want to do is, as you notice, I'm scrolling down and there's more. It's not just what you see on the very first part of the page here. Scroll down till you get to the bottom and make sure you've got everything taken care of, read, understood. This will definitely help you in making sure that you are designing your car correctly and making sure you're going to get a good car for this class. The other thing is, you also want to know that their research, as you do this research, it is graded. So this will also go in your grade book, is what your research and how good a research you do. So as you get done, let's say we got done with all this research here, you got all the way done to the bottom. Now what do? If you notice on the bottom of the tree, I'm going to move this tab. If I can move it, I got to exit out, I guess. In the very bottom of the tree, there is the next button. Okay, this is how you always want to move from one step of research to the other step of research. Okay, you always want to do the next button. Never just go up and automatically hit the next icon, because you may be skipping something if you do that. Now in this particular case, if I hit next, you'll notice it automatically does go to the next icon up here. And that's perfectly fine. It will do that various times. But there are times it will skip one and it'll go someplace else before it comes back to that next icon. So be aware of that. And now it takes you to the next thing. And again, go through this particular is the design challenge, and you want to go through and research and understand what you're using and kind of understand what tolerances are and how to build a structure. And you're going to go through all this, and notice I'm scrolling, and it's going to go through a bunch of this stuff. Now, some of these things like budget, for our class, I'm not worried so much about budget, but still understand what we're talking about when a budget comes up. Okay. Again, when you get to the end of this, you move to the tree and then you click the next button again. And the next button in this case also takes us to the next listed item here. And this talks about inventory and pricing, again, like that. Just kind of go over this and understand that there are certain things that we will use and we won't use that are in our inventory for our CO2 car. Example, we will be using a large basswood block instead of any of the other three. We will be using steel axles instead of the other three. We will be using plastic straws instead of any of the other four options. Okay, we will be using the WDR R1 and the WDR F1 wheels instead of all these other options for our dragster. Again, I'm pointing these out to you. We'll point them out in further videos so you know which ones you specifically want to put on. But those are the ones that are more conducive and closest to what we actually use when we build our CO2 car in our final stages. So after you kind of go through this and just kind of see what you got here, again, go to next. Now, if you notice, it went from inventory, it did not go to the next one. It went over here to this side, and you'll notice it's going to say tutorial. Okay, anything that pops up on the right side of the screen is going to be a tutorial option. In that tutorial option, or in that tutorial window, this kind of walks you through, okay, we want you to understand how to work on designing your car. So this will now take you into the steps of designing your car, and it'll walk you through the areas of this engineering tab we have up here. So as you go and read through this and understand this, if it tells you, go and do this in the engineering tab, go ahead and do it. It'll help you understand it, help you work with this. Some of these things you probably don't necessarily need to do with screen settings and stuff like that, but read through it just so you know. Again, you notice as I go through here, we still have the audio icons for things like that. And again, you can continue to go through, read through everything. It shows you icons and what each of the icons means when you get into the engineering screens and what they do and things like that. And it shows you how to make changes into items that changes need to be made in when you're setting things up and when you're putting things together in your engineering area. When you get to the end of this, don't jump over to this next. They have tutorials have their own next button correctly right here. So what we're going to do is you're going to click next over here. Notice it now jumps to a different tutorial. It's called Modeling Tutorial 1. Again, go through the whole thing, understand it. If it tells you, hey, go ahead and see what it does in engineering, go ahead and do it, and things like that, just to play along. It may not be specifically what I want you to do for your dragster, but at least it gives you an idea how it will work in your when you are in the engineering and editing it and stuff like that. So go through it. Some of these may be a little bit longer, some may not be, but that's fine. And again, when you get to the bottom of this, you can go to next again. And now notice what happened. We left the tutorial and we bumped back over to the research section, the background, the one that we left off on. And again, just go through all the items, as you go through. Again, this one's a little bit more reading, talks about designs, talks about structure, things like that. So go through, next button. And then occasionally you'll notice that you'll come up and it says it right here, and it also says it down here, but you have a background quiz. So there has everything you read here. It has a couple questions on what did you just read, okay? Understand that answering these questions in the quiz actually turns it into Whitebox Learning, so I can see it and see what you got a grade on these quizzes, and you were graded on these quizzes. It's not a very tough quiz. If you read the question and you don't remember what it said, go back into the reading and find the answer. It doesn't take that much effort to do that. Once you get done with the quizzes, like I said, there's a number of questions in here, and then I'm just going to answer question here, and it'll tell you if you're correct or incorrect, and then you move on to the next question. Okay, so and there, now you got your first question answered for you for this one. As you go through, just next question, next question, next question, all the way through until you're done, and then when you're done, click next. And then it will go into Newton's second law, and there talks about Newton's second law, some things you've talked about in science class already, and things like that. And if you'll notice, there's a motion quiz, and you'll go through the motion quizzes, answer the questions. Again, you can always go back and look for the answers, and then you'll hit, after you complete the quiz, move on to the next, and then we'll talk about mass. Again, another science item that you have probably used already and talked about in your science classes. And then we go to next, and then there's a mass worksheet. This one's a worksheet, again, just like the quizzes. It's the same way, and you can go through and answer these questions on your worksheet. Okay, and then you go through, click next, and then we run into another tutorial. You go through the entire tutorial following along as you should normally do. Click next, jumps back over to cartridge force, go through, read all that, click next. There's friction force, go through, read and do all this, click next. There's a friction force worksheet. So you have a worksheet here that you need to do. Click next. And then you go back to another tutorial, the surface friction analysis tutorial. If you see as you go back and forth, these tutorials interact from what you just learned from your research. And so it helps you understand what's going on here. And as you go through, you can work on these and understand what it's talking about here. You get to the bottom and click next. Comes back over here, drag force. You can work through all the drag, then click next. There's a quiz. You can click next, and then putting it all together. This is kind of just the final wrap up of your research. You can click next. Comes back to another tutorial right here. And in that tutorial, again, is the modeling tutorial 2. So it just goes through some more information on how to create a better car and what you can do and things like that. Keep in mind, there are things in this research and in these tutorials, it will show you that I will not show you in class. So this is a good thing for you to start making sure you're reading correctly and stuff like that. Now, one thing we need to focus on is when you go through all this and you come here to the final thing, the next doesn't light up here. The next isn't lit up over here. However, the way Whitebox has it set up, you're still not quite done. Okay, there are a couple items left to complete your total research so you can get a complete grade on your research. And this is what you do. So pay close attention to this point. If you go over to this arrow and you go back, okay, oh, first of all, before I show you that, I want you to do this. Notice which one we're on. Modeling tutorial 2. Now go to back. Okay, we've already done this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. Those are tutorials we've all jumped to. Notice this is model tutorial 2. It's the one we just ended up on. We did not do print templates tutorial. I want you to go and click on this on your own and then go through and understand print templates. Now we may do our we're going to do our print templates slightly different than what this, but in order for you to get a completion on your research points, you need to complete this portion. So this is our printing templates, okay? And that gets you that portion taken care of. There's a couple other things that you need to do to get that completion of your research, and that is now go over to build and test. Now I said we don't use build and test a lot, but build and test, if you click on it, there are 3 things in the tree over here under fabrication and evaluation that has you go through and understand what do you need for building and testing and things like that. It may not be exactly what we do, but it gives you the idea. So again, just like the tree for regular research, you click the first one and it'll open it up. And I'm going to actually just close this one so we have the full screen here. And it opens it up and it just goes through and says, okay, this is generally how you go through rail car fabrication on ours. And so you have a general idea of what we're going to do in our class. Like I said, my directions may be a little bit different than these, but it's more conducive for what we're doing in class. This is the one that you really kind of want to pay attention to. When we go to shell car fabrication, notice this one does not have a next button anywhere. Okay, so this one takes you right now to just go shell car fabrication. Just read through shell car fabrication. We are not going to make shell cars. We don't have the capabilities nor the time to make a shell car. But go through all the stuff it talks about it, and a lot of it is very similar to how to make the rail car. It's just the basically design of the body that we have to change and things like that. Um, and then after you've done that, you do the evaluation. Again, no next, so we're just going to click on the icon there, and this is how the evaluation. Does it meet the specifications that I've set aside? And we'll talk about specifications in future videos. But we're going to have to weigh it. We're going to measure it. We're going to make sure, if we have the time, we'll do a roll test, which I would love to do on every class, but sometimes we run out of time to do that. I would love to have the wind tunnel test. I have a wind tunnel to test them out. Again, I have time-wise, considering, will be great. So just go through and all that. Once you get that done, along with all that research done there and all the tutorials that we've done, you have now completed your research process. Okay, now you're going to be given this research, and it's going to be a short window that you're going to have to complete it in. The due date will be given in class to you. Pay close attention to that due date, because this is going to be for all your research, the quizzes on the research, the worksheets that you do in the research, and dragster designs that I have assigned to you, or I have said you have to have so many dragster designs. These are all going to be due on a certain day. That is the last day you can hand them in for points. If you don't have everything completed, that's all the points you get. Okay, even if you complete it after the fact of that day, you can no longer get more points for that, because we need them done that day because of our time constraints. If you don't have things done, people can't move on. And if we can't move on, means we're sitting waiting for you or somebody else to get things done, and we have less time in the shop, which means less time to build, and means less time to race, which means we don't get our class completed on time. Okay, so make sure when I tell you what day these things are done, everything is done. Okay, so then you can get your complete and total points, because I don't go back and add points to this or give you late points or anything like that. You get your complete and total points. So with that, this is the Whitebox Learning research portion of your video series. I thank you for watching, and please proceed with your next steps as you are assigned by your instructor.